Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard, one day closer to college football. How about that? I'll be making the trip to Nashville this weekend. Going to make it a full weekend. Going to go see the Bulldogs beat Vanderbilt and then go watch Jeffrey Simmons and the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. I've never been to a Titans game. The only ball game that I've been to in Nissan Stadium was when Mississippi State played in the Music City Bowl. So looking forward to that. I had a good friend reach out and said, hey, are you spending the night in Nashville on Saturday? I said, I wasn't planning to, but I love Nashville. It's my favorite southern city. I said, well, I've got a ticket for you if you want to go to the ball game on Sunday. So I'm now staying overnight in Nashville on Saturday. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting up there, watch the Bulldogs play. It's been a long time since I have been to cover Mississippi State play football at Vanderbilt. You know, to kind of put that in perspective, we talked a little bit about, the rotation hadn't really worked well for us. We have not played Vandy and Nashville since 2009. And that, to put that in perspective, that was Dan Mullen's first year. Tyson Lee was the starting quarterback. That's how long it's been since we played Nashville. Of course, we won that ball game 15-3. It was not a lot of fun. It wasn't. We were ugly. And I remember what Dan Mullen said in postgame. He goes, man, it's really difficult to win a Division I football game. And it is. But we let those guys hang around a little bit in that ball game. Bulldog defense played really well, but that to kind of put in perspective, it's been a dozen years now. And that's kind of what's wrong with the SEC scheduling model. Look at how many players have graduated, from Mississippi State that never got a chance to go to Nashville and play Vanderbilt. And it's not just Vanderbilt. It's just the craziness of the rotation. We hadn't been up there in a dozen years. I mean, if that's not evidence that there needs to be a change in our scheduling model, I don't know what is. There are a lot of other games, kind of East versus West that don't get played very often. That's the joy of playing in the SEC. And so I've heard some things, about scheduling that I think make a lot of sense. The whole thing about let's have 3 permanent opponents. And then you rotate everybody else, and that gives everybody a chance over the course of their 4-year career to play in every SEC venue. That, to me, makes better sense. Rather than the entire conference and every sport kind of being restricted because of this stupid Tennessee, Alabama, 3rd Saturday in October stuff. Guys, let me tell you this. It means nothing. That game means nothing. Now, it used to mean something. It used to be a big deal. Back when the SEC didn't have parity within the league, we don't have a whole lot now. But, on any given Saturday, anybody can beat anybody. Back when, Alabama and Tennessee were kind of the dominant teams in this league, it made sense. Hey, the top 2 teams are going to play. Hey, you know what? Let's make this an annual tradition. Let's always play the 3rd Saturday in October. That'll make it mean something. Hey, because, we get Alabama gets Auburn for the Iron Bowl, so that gives us a big game in October and then the big rivalry game in November. And then now we're all stuck with this. So fix it, Greg. Fix it. And so the way that you could fix that, we talk about the 3 permanent opponents. We'll just look at Alabama. Well, then they could have Auburn, and they could have Tennessee, and then somebody else. Well, who do you pick? Well, somebody told me recently that about half of the top 10 most rated games from TV numbers in the last several years, Alabama versus LSU. And if you don't think that matters in the grand scheme of things, you kind of kid yourself a little bit too. Alabama against LSU, people want to tune in and watch that ball game. It's kind of what Alabama and Tennessee want to be, right? Because everybody in the league turns in to watch Alabama LSU. I don't think we have to put a name on it or put a traveling trophy or pick a date to have it every year. But I would like to see those games continue. I mean, as a fan of college football, don't you want to see those games? And, of course, the Nick Saban versus LSU thing kind of added a little bit of luster to that series. But, so that makes perfect sense. So what does that mean for Mississippi State? You say, well, Steve, that cool, that's cute. It helps Alabama's issues. They can maintain their 2 traditional rivalries and then join a more equitable rotation in the schedule. Well, I think State obviously would keep Ole Miss. I think that's pretty much a done deal. I think Ole Miss would keep State and LSU, and then, of course, pick up somebody, from the East. Do they keep Vanderbilt? I mean, I would hate to see the battle of the Vanderbilts go away, but, maybe that's not a fair and equitable schedule. Who knows? But the reality of it is let's say State gets Kentucky and Ole Miss, and then we pick up somebody else kind of from the West, whether it be, Auburn or LSU. And to me, LSU makes some sense. I'd prefer to play Auburn. The chances of us beating Auburn are a little bit better. But I think, that model to me makes the most sense. I've seen all these pods and that sort of stuff, and I guess in some ways you can kind of make that work. But, some of the models I've seen for the pods are really kind of silly. I think the best thing to do is let's just, have 3 permanent opponents and then rotate everybody because, you're looking to not only enhance the value of the student-athlete experience, but also the fan experience. I mean, aren't you guys excited to go to Austin, Texas and watch the Bulldogs play out there? I am. I've never seen a game in Norman, Oklahoma either. I'd love to be able to go up there and watch us play, but I don't want it to be, a once-in-a-lifetime type deal. If they're going to be in our conference, I don't want to have to be a dozen years between trips to Norman. I love Oklahoma. It's a great place. I had never been until a few years ago, and, I've been a handful of times since then. I love the people of Oklahoma. I love the landscape of Oklahoma. It's great. Been out there to the Hard Rock in Tulsa a handful of times. I've never had a bad experience there. If you're in the area, go by, see them, let them house and feed you, entertain you. Been to some shows there. Saw, let me think, who did I see there? I saw Avenged Sevenfold and Bullet for My Valentine there. It was great. It's been a wonderful time. And so I don't want to have to say, well, I don't get a chance to go see my friends in Oklahoma, but once every dozen years. Unless I make a special trip. It's nice to be able to incorporate, a ball game weekend around some other travel. And I'll tell you, for those of you that have never been, if you're ever in the state of Oklahoma, you owe it to yourself to go to Oklahoma City Bombing Memorial. It changed my life. Really did. Really did. You owe it to yourself to go. Because there's just such a joy. The people of Oklahoma, you can really tell they're really one people. But be that as it may, I don't mean to chase that rabbit trail for long, but the reality of it is that, we've got to do something, with the schedule rotation that makes sense for everybody, not just a couple teams in the SEC. And we've all talked about, it'd be the smart thing to do is move Auburn to the east and Missouri to the west. And it does make perfect sense, but then we've still got all this, quote, tradition. So stupid. And I don't want to chase that either, but I've had multiple shows about the scheduling rotation. But the latest thing that I've heard is there is some support for the 3 permanent opponents and then a regular rotation. And I think that makes the experience better for all of us. And I think it actually creates more equity in the league. Because how many years have we said, hey, the West is 10 times better than the East? Like the middle team in the West could probably finish second in the East. The East is getting better. But I think about the baseball aspect of this thing as well. I mean, how many SEC regular season championships has Vandy won because they get the benefit of playing traditionally the worst couple teams in the conference every single year? Because they don't differentiate between an SEC West win or an SEC East win. It's just an SEC win. Well, we don't get to play, Kentucky and Missouri every year. We don't. And even though I think Kentucky will be better this year, but Vanderbilt does. We got to go through this meat grinder of the West. We got to play LSU. We got to go play A&M. And A&M has really had some success at Mississippi State in Starkville in recent years, as we discussed back during baseball. We got to play Arkansas. We got to play Ole Miss. If you're in the East, you got to deal with Florida, and that's really it. Now, Tennessee has been better under Tony Vitello, but traditionally Tennessee has not been a power. And so Vanderbilt's kind of stacked some wins because they're in the lesser division. And so if we change this, and I don't know if the baseball scheduling model changes with football, but I think there is maybe one of those things maybe you look at. I do think the rotation for baseball is a little more fair. Like we'll get to go to Georgia this year. I'm excited about that. Never covered a baseball game at Georgia. After this year, if I'm not mistaken, I will have punched the final dot on my SEC baseball bingo card. I will have covered a game at every SEC stadium after this year, if things go as planned. You never know what life's going to bring you. But that's the plan anyway. So I just wanted to share that with you before we kind of get into the show today. We're going to preview Vanderbilt. We're going to talk a little bit about the history also, too. Have a pretty good win. An important win for Mississippi State. Feature one of our great Bulldog players from years ago, a guy that's still very active with Mississippi State's M Club. Let's thank our good friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show, man. Love those people, love the food, love the quality of the experience when you go in there. It's not just a place to go break bread. It's a chance to go visit with your friends in a great vibe, in a great atmosphere, whether you want an adult beverage or maybe you don't. Maybe it's a family night out. Maybe you get the spring rolls to get things going. I highly recommend that. And then find your own favorites. If you just want the traditional great American restaurant quality hamburger, get the Bulldog. You will not leave disappointed. But if you want to get on the wild side a little bit, let me encourage you. Get the Pimentology, add bacon. Trust me. Trust me. And when you're done, get that great bread pudding or perhaps a chocolate shake to go, or both. I don't know what you're doing with your life. Maybe you want both. 3 great locations to serve you right here, University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and then the brand new one, Lake Harbor Drive there in the Richland-Flowood area. Go by and check it out. So many great reviews, too. So many of you are going and having a great experience. Be sure to tell your friends. Bulldog Burger Company is a place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, so let's jump into, we've had some media since we guys were together. We had Mike Leach on Monday. Mike didn't appear to be in the best of moods, and after getting beat 49-9, I don't blame him. I wasn't either, Mike. I wasn't in the best of moods either. I think collectively the fan base wasn't. He was kind of short and direct with some answers at times with the questions. But, one of the things that I have noticed, and maybe it's just me, we do post-game after Saturday, and then, we get into Monday, and traditionally it's like, okay, anything you saw in the film review that kind of stood out, and sometimes you get an injury report, not under Mike Leach, but traditionally that's how it goes. And then, we kind of get into preview of the next opponent. But for some reason, I don't, and maybe it's part of it's me. We spend a lot of time talking about last Saturday rather than the next Saturday. And so that's one of the things that I'm kind of conscious of now. I'm going to probably do a better job of that, do my best anyway, because you guys know we got beat 49-9 at home, right? You're ready to move on, and so should we. Let's be honest. Do you on Monday and Tuesday, do you want to read another story about getting beat 49-9? I don't want to write one. I don't feel like you guys want to read one. You want me to say, Steve, hey, are we going to be able to beat Vanderbilt? What does Coach Leach think about their secondary? What does he think about their team? To me, that's more important. I can't tell anybody else what questions to ask. I don't know what everybody else is working on. But I'm going to do my best to try to move that thing forward. I'm not going to have this revisionist history because a lot of times I'm the first or second question at the press conference. And so, I'm not going to do that. What did you see in the review? It doesn't matter. Unless there's, it's the same old thing. You know what I'm saying? It's all going to be coach speak. And that's not to be critical of Mike Leach or any of the Mississippi State coaches because all coaches are like that, Yeah, to kind of illustrate that point, I was on the Clark Lee press conference on Tuesday. They actually have their Meet the Media Day on a Tuesday where we were on Monday. And we spent about 20 minutes with Clark Lee essentially conducting an autopsy on what went wrong on the last offensive and defensive possessions for Vanderbilt in the game against South Carolina. You may recall Vanderbilt had a late lead, couldn't convert a first down, had to punt. South Carolina takes over with 1:36 to go, and it takes them less than a minute to go down and score, and they win the game. And we spent about 20 minutes going through that. And I was sitting there thinking, this is so irritating. So I kind of saw it from your point of view. I'm like, can we move on and talk about the Mississippi State game? He got one question about Mississippi State. One question. And then I had to take his answer and kind of break it up into a couple different things just to kind of share with you. So I'm going to share with you the few things that he said, even though essentially a lot of it boils down to a lot of coach speak. But let me share this with you. I'll save you a click, I guess. But so here's what he said basically about about playing at home. We're excited to be back home. I think this is another great opportunity for us to learn how to play at home and defend our home stadium and to develop a style of play that engages our fan base. That all sounds good, right? But it doesn't really pertain to Mississippi State. On facing Mississippi State is a team that is well-versed in its systems on both sides of the ball that are unique. That is true. We run the air raid and, of course, the 3-3-5. Mississippi State, they are able to manage the game and be in close games late. They've been able to win. Coach Mike Leach does a nice job. On offense, they're possessing the ball with their passing attack. They can also be explosive. He's right on both of those things. I would like to see more explosiveness, wouldn't you? And again, that's not being negative. That's just the reality of it. We can methodically move the ball down the field, but it'd be nice every once in a while to get a chunk play. Now, a lot of that, of course, is about how teams are playing us defensively. When teams go man-to-man, we can get them. Teams stay in zone, we got to be a little more, measured in what we do. On the Mississippi State defense, defensively, it's helter-skelter. It's a ton of movement. They've got big physical front. They move around a bunch. That's going to create negative yardage snaps. The challenge for us offensively is how to get a rhythm, how to get the ball into space. They're going to make that challenging, and we're going to have to come up with a great plan to get that done. Mississippi State is a good team, but it's going to be a great challenge. We're excited to be able to do that at home. And that's it. So basically a half-hour press conference, and that's all you got about Mississippi State. Now, as Colin Duncan said last night, Mississippi State starting safety Colin Duncan, really like him a lot, very gregarious, outgoing, well-spoken young man, had a brother that played at Vanderbilt, comes from a very educated family. The guy's a great ambassador for Mississippi State. He's the kind of guy you could see going to media days and, kind of being a star at media days because he is so well-spoken. But he spoke, hey, if I'm Vanderbilt and I'm those guys on that team, I'm thinking, hey, we should have won that game last year. We should have won that game. We can win this thing, and now we get it at our place. And so I understand that Vanderbilt has probably got some renewed vigor this week. Every week is important. But it's only human nature to look on the schedule and say, well, who are we playing this week? Oh, yeah, we can get those guys. Because deep down in our hearts, you kind of know it. That just about everybody collectively in the Mississippi State family last week said, we got Alabama. We can't beat those guys. And so now all of a sudden, Vanderbilt thinks, hey, we got a winnable game, man. We've won a couple of games this year, kind of in dramatic fashion. We should have won last week against South Carolina on the road. Well, now we're at our place against a team that, has kind of been up and down. Maybe we catch them down and we can get them. And so we're going to get a great effort from Vanderbilt. There is absolutely no question about that. I think it's important for our fans to kind of expect, I expect a real tussle in that first half. I don't think there's any question. We need to get a good start. And a lot of that's going to start offensively. We've got to come out of the gate. We've got to be able to make some good things happen. We've got to be able to move the chains. I don't expect a huge crowd there at Vanderbilt. I know you guys don't either. Even when they've been good, they have not really supported football there. They don't support baseball, and they've won national championships there. Those are things you kind of look at and you kind of wonder about. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it is what it is. So we need you guys to be there. Of course, no cowbells allowed on the road in the SEC. Be there and be loud. The Bulldogs are going to need you. It is a great trip to a great southern city, and it's a 3 p.m. kick. So you can, if you want to, you can come stay Friday night, get up, go to the ball game, and still have Saturday night to have a little entertainment as well. I know many of you are kind of making the double dip like me and going to see the Titans, but the reality of it is it's a very winnable game for us. And so we need to make sure that we're doing our best to bring our best effort. Now, Austin Williams said last night, I asked him specifically about, Will Rogers, your roommates with a guy, you're good friends, what do you do to kind of pick him up? And he just kind of goes on to say, you just keep doing what you do. He said there's enough noise out there, on social media. There's always people that have opinions. And that's one thing that I think about sometimes too. These are young people, and think about this when you're in high school. It's like if you're the starting quarterback in high school, especially from a winning program, you're the guy. You are the big man on campus. Everybody wants to know you. Everybody wants to hang out with you. Girls want to date you. It's a different deal. Well, you get into this meat grinder of a conference in the Southeastern Conference, and let's say that you're developing. You're not an elite player. And so they get some fan criticism really for the first time. Everybody has haters in life, right? Everybody, in some respects. I guess if you don't, maybe you've never done anything. But, there's always somebody that's jealous or envious of other people. And so maybe you do a little bit of that in high school, just a little bit. But when you get into college and you get on the big stage and you get on television and you get in front of, these huge crowds, the haters are going to multiply. Just the reality of life. Things grow exponentially. It's the price of fame, right? And so how they handle that is rather interesting. And it's like, sometimes I think Will might be a little bit too conscious of the noise. But again, he's learning to deal with it for the first time. I know when Dak Prescott was here, Dak, had some struggles. A lot of people didn't understand the things that he was dealing with his mom being ill. Didn't fully appreciate it. Didn't know. I remember he had a terrible game at South Carolina. Terrible game at South Carolina. There's no question about it. Went out there one of the worst games of his career. And I remember reading the commentary then. Hey, Dak isn't it. Hey, you guys are wrong. This guy can't do it. We got to find a way to get Tyler Russell healthy. Dak's not going to be able to do it. A day later, his mom died. And so I think it's important sometimes, let's give people some room to be human, okay? And I know some people, well, Steve, you get too preachy on here. Well, that's not what I'm trying to suggest. It's just sometimes I think it's easy to forget these guys are not professional athletes. That's not to say there's not a standard they have to live up to. In many ways, it's kind of toughening them up for life, right? Because if you or I we don't produce, we're done, right? We lose our jobs, got to go out and do something else. And so there is a process that we all go through as we mature to be able to deal with that sort of stuff. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't really care what anybody says about me now. And if you'd asked me that in my early 20s, I'd be ready to fight, man. I mean, just some stranger make some random comment about you. You're ready to go. You want to defend yourself. Because at that point, you're still kind of insecure in life, right? You grow and mature a little bit, and you realize that what those other people say about you doesn't even matter. And so social media has kind of brought that more to the forefront. And I'm eager to see if that doesn't speed up that process a little bit more, because people are exposed to that negativity a little earlier in life than maybe they were when we were kids. But the reality of it is that, Will Rogers, again, has played 1 year of football, and there is still going to be some up and down. The failures on offense against Alabama are plentiful. But I think the first thing that I would start with is that Alabama's really good. They're really good. The number two thing I would say is that Alabama was a refocused team coming out off a loss that had no margin for error. Now, Texas A&M is really not a better football team than Mississippi State. We've proven that on the field in their backyard, right? And some would say, well, maybe they were looking ahead a little bit. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they were thinking. This is what happened. The reality of it is we beat them on the field. The reality of it is we should have beat them worse than we did. So we're not a bad football team. We're not a good football team. Not yet. But we went out and played like a bad football team on Saturday. And maybe because the pressure of thinking, we got to go play a perfect game is the issue. That's the thing about sports. When you play loose, you usually play well. When you play tight, you usually get your brains beat in, which is what happened to us. And so when I look at these offensive issues, there is plenty of blame to go around. Did Will make some bad throws? Yes, he did. Did Will have a lot of pressure in his face because the offensive line struggled to pick up their blitz package? Yes, he did. Did Will make some good throws to some guys in open space and they dropped the football? Yes, they did. So this is not just a Will Rogers problem. This is a Mississippi State offensive issue. And it'd be one thing, I look back in hindsight, as well as we played at A&M, we still left some points out there. But it's interesting, we are a results-based society. Will played exceptionally well at A&M. We win the ball game. But it wasn't just Will. The people around him played really well. And that's what has to happen. They always say the quarterback gets too much credit when you win and too much blame when you lose. And that's the reality of it as well. So we just need Will to go out, play within himself. We got to protect better. Now, granted, we're not going to see the same level of athletes that we saw last week. And I've said all week to some of my friends, and I think you guys would agree, you cannot make an objective assessment of your team based on how they play Alabama. You just can't. Or Georgia. You just can't. Right now, those guys are just in a different league. Now, you can compare yourself against A&M. You compare yourself against Kentucky, teams that are similarly situated. But football is about matchups. And Alabama and Georgia, those teams are going to be favorable in every matchup. I would venture to say that it was a bigger fluke that A&M beat Alabama than there was that Mississippi State beat A&M, because I think A&M is a lot closer to Mississippi State than they are Alabama. I think that's the reality of that situation. But you start doing these, cross-team comparisons, you drive yourself silly because, the teams don't have the same level of personnel. Each team has different strengths and different weaknesses. Football is about matchups. We're going to talk about, we previewed the weekend on Friday. I take a look at this LSU-Ole Miss game. That's a bad matchup for Ole Miss. You can say, well, Steve, LSU's kind of struggling a little bit. Yeah, that's true. They beat Florida last week. Let me remind you of that. And they found their running game. Ole Miss stinks against the run. And now all of a sudden you've got a line of scrimmage coach like Ed Orgeron that wants to run the football and exert their will. And now all of a sudden they're running the football with some confidence. That offensive line had their best game of the year. And now all of a sudden, Matt Corral's a little bit dinged up. It's not a good matchup for Ole Miss. A team that can't stop the run against a team that suddenly found it Now, you got to ask yourself, is that the outlier? They just catch Ty Grantham in Florida slipping. I would submit to you, just for the same reasons that it's difficult to assess Mississippi State's performance against Alabama, I would submit to you that Florida probably has a much greater collection of athletes on defense than Ole Miss does. So if LSU can have a running back run for a school record against Florida, what's to say he can't have a good game against Ole Miss? Not to say he's going to duplicate that performance. But again, it's about matchups. When I began to think about our team defensively, what's a bad matchup for us? Well, teams that are balanced can be a bad matchup for us. We do best when we put the game in the hands of the quarterback. We stop the run and make the quarterback beat us. How many quarterbacks can beat us? Well, Bryce Young, he beat us. You look at the situation at Memphis, we basically dominated that game with the exception of that fluke punt deal and the trick play. We put the game in the quarterback, and we didn't finish the ball game. Now, you go back and look at, second half at Louisiana Tech game, and we kind of stopped feeling sorry for ourselves. We put the game in the hands of the quarterback. And so when I begin to look down the rest of our schedule, it's like, who kind of scares you a little bit? Well, Matt Corral scares you a little bit. Guy's really talented. But how many quarterbacks are we going to play that can elevate the team around them without the benefit of a strong running game? We went to Texas A&M. Zach Calzada was not where he needed to be. We put the game in his lap, and we won the football game. So when we go to Vanderbilt this weekend, we're going to put the game in Mike Wright's lap. As we learned on Tuesday, Mike Wright will start in place of their regular starter due to injury, Kenny Seals. And Wright started the game against South Carolina and had some pedestrian numbers, but he provides a different element. We haven't played a lot of dual-threat quarterbacks. People forget we did play one against Louisiana Tech. So we have played some. But so it changes the dynamic of the defense a little bit. Not sure which defensive coaches we get tonight, but I plan to ask them about that. When you have to account for another hat in the running game, it changes your approach a little bit, changes your game plan. Bryce Young, you heard me say it on Monday, guy's outstanding. He's better than I thought, honestly. And that guy put up some big numbers. But to see how he handled the Mississippi State pressure, because we brought some real heat, and a lesser quarterback would have probably been sacked 8, 9, 10 times. But Bryce Young had the athleticism and the arm strength to kind of buy some time and kind of get around a little bit and evade the pressure and complete the pass. We're not going to see many quarterbacks the rest of this year that have that same level of ability. And again, I give Matt Corral a lot of credit. The guy's really improved. He's the guy that scares me a little bit. It really does. And so we've got to find a way to kind of do, I guess, in many respects what Tennessee did. Make him want to run the football. Make him want to run the football. Don't let him sit out there and play pitch and catch. We're going to play the Egg Bowl in November. Right now we're getting ready to talk about Vanderbilt. But before we do, let's get into today's top 10 list, brought to you by closewithblair.com. Blair Chandler, a good friend of mine, has been for a long time, and he is a mortgage professional. There's a lot of people in the mortgage industry. I was in the mortgage industry for a short time. I respect those people that can stay in that industry for a while because even though I was successful in it, man, it's a high burnout rate. And so there's a lot of newcomers that join the industry, and there's a lot of money in it, if you're successful. But I would want to give my business to somebody that's been there and been through the wars, and that's Blair Chandler. A guy that's a Bulldog through and through, season ticket holder, has a place here, season ticket holder in multiple sports, also been in the mortgage industry 21 years, works for Fairway Mortgage, a reputable mortgage lender, not some fly-by-night, some proud lender. This is a guy that's done it at the highest level with one of the best companies in the industry, top 1% nationally in close ratio. This guy knows how to get loans closed. Refi is a good time to get it done. Rates are down. The economy's not doing well. There's a good chance we're going to see a boost in rates. So get your equity to work for you. Maybe you want to put it in a pool. Maybe you've got a wedding to pay for. There's always opportunities to refi. And also, too, maybe you're looking to buy a house. Or maybe you don't know if you're ready. Blair can help you get ready. Reach out to him at closewithblair.com. He'll be happy to help you. And listen, maybe if you don't remember that, even though it's B-L-A-I-R, Close with Blair, you can give Blair a phone call or a text. And I think that's important too, because he's allowed me to give you his personal cell number. Not some office phone where, you're going to sit behind a voicemail for, a couple days. You're going to get the personal touch. Give Blair a call or text 601-500-2344. Again, that's 601-500-2344. And here's the kicker, too. Just because you're one of the cool kids that listens to the Boneyard, if you mention that to Blair, he's going to pay for your appraisal. That's a $500 to $600 value. A lot of fees involved with getting a mortgage loan done. Blair's going to help you out. It's because he likes to keep it in the family. Mention the Boneyard when you talk to Blair by text, by call, or email, and he will pay for your appraisal. Again, it's closeatblair.com. So I have had some of our R&B listeners reach out and say, Steve, you never do R&B anymore. My friend Demi Brown reached out and said, hey, Steve, I love the top 10, but I would like to hear some R&B every once in a while. And so, here's the thing about me that you guys don't know. A lot of you guys look at me, you see the dreads, you see all the tattoos, you see that handsome face, and you think, you know what? This guy's only hung up like in 80s, rock. And you're wrong. You're wrong about that. Many of you know that was also part of the early 90s dance scene in Baton Rouge. Had a great time. Didn't have dreads back then. Didn't have tattoos either. But I learned to love everything. I'm not a huge country music fan, but I respect people like Brantley Gilbert that write and perform their own music. I really dig it. I do. Believe it or not, I like some Sam Hunt stuff. And I know some of you guys that are, these country music purists, you don't like Florida Georgia Line and stuff. I like anything that makes you smile a little bit. There's some songs that make you feel something, make you feel nostalgic. Those are great. But, I like tunes that kind of get me going. So like when I hear Cruise by Florida Georgia Line with Nelly, I think, hey, it's a fun song. Let's go get this thing stuck, right? Life sometimes is a little bit too serious. So music brings some joy to my life. I hope it does for you. So in honor of my R&B listeners, we're going back to the king of the New Jack Swing. We're going to do the Teddy Riley catalog today. And Teddy's been involved with some of the best names in all of pop music. One of the greatest producers of our generation. I understand that Quincy Jones actually recommended Teddy Riley to Michael Jackson. Pretty good stuff. And again, Teddy Riley. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you how this list is structured. So the songs in the top 4 are all songs that Teddy performed on. The others are ones that he produced or was maybe like a secondary person. But Teddy has kind of had his hand in everything. I mean, he's a very well-accomplished musical personality. Not just as a performer, but as a producer as well, and a guy that did some incredible songwriting and really kind of changed the game in many respects. A lot of that stuff, like you go back and listen to like the R. Kelly stuff, like She's Got That Vibe. I know R. Kelly's that's a bad name to say these days, but Troop and all that stuff that was right around like the turn of the decade when we went into the 90s, a lot of that stuff had Teddy Riley's fingerprints on it. Whether he did it or didn't, there are a lot of people that tried to mimic the things that he was doing. So here are the top 10 songs, in my opinion, that Teddy Riley was involved in. And some of these are absolute runaway hits. Some of them are legendary. But again, the final 4 are going to be the songs that he was part of the production with. So, okay, so number 10, and I watched the video before we went live today. And you forget, Deion Sanders is in the video. Prime has the golden book out from MC Hammer, and he's calling everybody to come be a part of the Pumps and a Bump video. I used to want one of those Atlanta Falcons hockey-style jerseys that MC Hammer wore in that video because I thought it was so cool. Couldn't find it anywhere. I'm sure they were custom made for the video. If you know of where I can find one, I'm not even a Falcons fan. I'd love to have one. I think they are so incredibly, incredibly cool. Maybe I should hit Deion Sanders up on Twitter. Hey, Prime, give me a Falcons hockey jersey and I'll be in the Pumps and a Bump 3 video. Well, let's get it together. Let's all come out of retirement. All right, so Pumps and a Bump from Hammer, that's number 10 on the list. Number 9, a one-hit wonder. But, man, when this song broke, and maybe it's because she had, the long, braids or dreads or whatever it was a one-hit wonder for Jane Child. It's a song, Don't Want to Fall in Love. And it's kind of one of those synth pop songs. It's got a real heavy bass line. Teddy Riley, the mastermind behind that song. It was number 1. And everywhere you went that summer, you heard Don't Want to Fall in Love. Number 8, man, one of the greatest R&B singers of all time. And Teddy Riley did a lot of work with him. And I've got this number 8, and you're going to think, man, if this song is number 8, the rest of this list must be absolute fire. And let me tell you, it is. Number 8 is Keith Sweat's Make It Last Forever. And let me tell you this. When I was chasing all those girls down in South Mississippi, I always had Keith Sweat with me. I had my Keith Sweat cassettes with me wherever I went to set the mood, even though that I was a guy that was really in a Motley Crue. I don't know anybody that doesn't like Keith Sweat. I mean, deep down, honestly. I mean, it's like Keith, Keith was in the movie New Jack City too. He sang at the wedding. But Keith is the real deal, man. And I even like the up-tempo stuff like I Want Her and Make You Sweat. We should do a Keith Sweat top 10 if we hadn't done one. Maybe Roy look into that. But Make It Last Forever, man. Teddy Riley brought the best out of Keith Sweat, and I thought really helped Keith kind of cross over into mainstream music at a much, much higher rate. Number 7, this song, ironically, also was a part of New Jack City. How about that? And I love the movie New Jack City. If I've never told you guys, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love all the characters, and it's not that I was necessarily rooting for or against Nino Brown. I just thought Wesley Snipes was remarkable in that movie. I loved it. Loved everything about it. But they had the club scene, and everybody's going in, and it's right before G-Money and them have the one of their many altercations with some of the mob. And it's The Show by Dougie Fresh. 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. That's The Show. Dougie Fresh, one of the pioneers of the rap industry, I don't know what Dougie thinks about today's music, rap music, but it's not nearly as good. When we had the MCs, like when we had LL Cool J and Big Daddy Kane and people like that, to me that's when rap was the coolest. And I know Steve, you're an old guy. You're right. It's true. But I think those guys, maybe because they were pioneers. I mean, when I got that Run DMC, that very first Run DMC cassette, and I could play Hard Times whenever I wanted to, I was like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. I mean, ever. And so I wish we could have more of that. And that's one thing I give Teddy Riley a lot of credit for is like he kind of added some of the dance aspect and rap music together with the New Jack Swing style. It was great. Number 6, a song by the King of Pop. It's Remember the Time. You remember that video? It was such a production. Magic Johnson, everybody's in it. There was all these famous people in the video. But Remember the Time, a great song. That's a Teddy Riley production. Maybe you didn't know that. Number 5, I mentioned some of the better MCs. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Kool Moe Dee. Of course, he had the Wild Wild West, but this is not that one. It's like The Job Done. Teddy Riley produced that. This is a great list, man. I mean, a lot of people are going to listen to this and think, man, where has this been? I haven't listened to this in a long time. Okay, so now we're into some songs that Teddy actually performed on. And one of these songs, some would say, Steve, this is too low on the list. But you'd be wrong, because you could have your list. Your list would be wrong. My list is correct. But we got to hear this song out at Duty Noble Field this year, and when Houston Harding took them out. That is No Diggity, No Doubt from Blackstreet. And I absolutely love the jazz part of this. Oh my gosh, that's the thing too about Blackstreet. If you don't know Blackstreet, you are missing out. They were phenomenal. Number 3, going back to some of the earlier days of Teddy Riley, he was in a group called Guy, and they reconnect every now and again to do some shows. My favorite Guy song, and I know a lot of people are probably into I Like It. To me, the best Guy song, without a doubt, is Let's Chill. Let's Chill from Guy was also in my tape deck when I was going out on dates. Sometimes After 7, Bobby Brown, all that good stuff. But Let's Chill from Guy, man, that was the greatest. My favorite Blackstreet song, and you know what my affection is for that group. I really, really dig them. But it's Don't Leave Me. Sorry about a little technical difficulty there, but it's Don't Leave Me. And this is one of those that just, if this doesn't make you feel a little something, I think something's wrong with you. I used to have a buddy of mine that said, if you put on Blackstreet and you're on a date with a girl and she doesn't at least start holding your hand, when this song comes on, it's probably time to take her home, because it's not going to be a good night. It's not going to be a good date. It's just not feeling the vibe. Blackstreet, all that stuff was phenomenal. But to me, and this kind of goes against a lot of the rest of the songs on this list, a lot of these songs about relationships, that sort of stuff, Make It Last Forever, that kind of stuff. Then to me, the best song that Teddy Riley was a part of, it was a one-hit wonder. And man, when it dropped, all we ever wanted to do was zoom a zoom, 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 and a boom, boom. It's Rump Shaker by Rex and Effects, right? Oh my gosh, it was such a great song, and it was a song that was easy to dance to. And that's one thing too that I give Teddy Riley a lot of credit for, is he wrote great love songs and did a great job getting people on the dance floor. And so for all of my R&B listeners, I love you, and this is the evidence of that. I want you guys to enjoy this list. And if you and maybe you've heard of a few of these songs, like if you're like not an R&B person, you owe it to yourself to listen to this, because you're going to be like, oh, I've heard that. I've heard it. Oh, I forgot about that song. That's great. Man, there were so many hits on this list. Teddy Riley, a musical genius, man. So enjoy the list. We'll do some more R&B. I'm not going to make you guys, we're not always going to do, the Hollywood Strip. Matter of fact, this Friday, it's Roy's pick. It's something completely different for me. It's Roy's favorite band. I'll tell you who on Friday. But we're going to do Roy's pick on Friday. So no metal or rap Friday. So enjoy today. Enjoy the Teddy Riley list. And I'm gonna bump this probably for a couple days, man. I look forward when these lists come out. I just go ahead and hit play and just kind of let them roll. And because I listen to a lot of these songs before I put these lists together. But it's fun to be able to get on the road and travel a little bit. Maybe when I go to Vanderbilt, I'll be bumping this too. I'll be in Tupelo tomorrow. That reminds me. I'll be in Tupelo at the Christmas Village thing on Thursday and Friday. Now, I will come back home and record the Friday show for you guys Thursday night. But I'll be there all day on Thursday. I will be there until 5 p.m. on Friday because I'm going to see Alice Cooper at Bancorp South that night. So kind of an update there. So if you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let me know. Had a couple this morning, sent them on to Roy. So we got a list. And sometimes, we don't just go in order, because sometimes you guys will have some really good ideas and say, Steve, I can't believe hadn't done this one. And I'll kind of like that better, and I get excited about it, so we'll go ahead and do it. So if you have something that you're excited about, let me know. A lot of feedback about that 1997 alt-rock list. I had a lot of people reach out and said, dude, this was like my junior year at high school, or this is my senior year in college, and I listened to all these songs. It's good to kind of hear them all together on one list. So there you go. And if you're looking for those lists, search. You can go to Roy's Twitter or his Spotify. He is Dogmatic, DAWGMATIC 67. Dogmatic 67, and search for those lists. And Gordon Griffin put some together for us in the infancy of this little program. And sometimes when you guys are looking for those, I find them with Gordon. And so if you got questions, reach out, let me know. Thanks so much for your support of the top 10 list. Next segment of the show brought to you by campusbookmart.net. Love those guys to death, man. I was there on Saturday. And when I go over there, it's like, it's fun not having to introduce yourself. And yes, I'm very recognizable, but every time I go in there, I just feel at home. Everybody in there has such a good vibe and a good spirit. And so let me encourage you, go by and see them. They are already your friends. In many cases, they're friends you just hadn't met yet. That's Stan the Man, Miss Kathy Brown, lovely, talented Susie, Cheyenne, the whole crew. If you can't make it to town to see their smiling faces, let me encourage you to visit them on the World Wide Web, if I can get it out, campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. It's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. And listen, it's getting cold. And maybe when we won the national championship, you stocked up on T-shirts. Hey, it's time to stock up on hoodies and sweatshirts. And you can get that at campusbookmart.net. Again, promo code BSR. All right, let's take a look at Vanderbilt. It has not been a great year for Vanderbilt. Let me go through a couple things here with you to kind of prepare you. I know a lot of people say, well, Vanderbilt's not any good until they get ready to play us. It's like everybody looks at that and wonders, what's the deal? So they began the year losing at home to East Tennessee State 23-3. They then go on the road, kick a last-second field goal to beat Colorado State 24-21. They get blown out at home by Stanford 41-23. Georgia absolutely brutalized them 62-0. They find a way to beat UConn 30-28, had to do that in come-from-behind fashion. Then they get shelled by Florida 42-0 down in the swamp, and then lose at South Carolina 21-20 over the weekend. So they sit right now at 2-5 and 0-3 in the Southeastern Conference. They are just 1-3 at home. Of course, they'll win over a really, really bad UConn team. So let's break down the team a little bit here. Averaging 14.2 points per game, allowing 34. So near 20-point differential. So you begin to look at that and think, okay, we ought to be able to get some things going offensively. And provided that Will Rogers is in good shape, I don't expect him to be 100%. I think we should be able to put up some points against them. They have only scored 100 points this year and allowed 238. Of course, those two lopsided losses to Georgia and Florida kind of skew the numbers a bit. They have been pretty balanced on offense, but have had more success passing the ball than they have running the football. 128 first downs on the season, 18 of them by penalty, 45 for rushing, 65 passing. They have also allowed about the same number in passing and rushing. So it's not like they're just deficient in one form of defense. On the offensive side of the football, they have run for 930 yards, allowed 14-15, averaging just over 3 yards per carry and giving up over 5, right at 5.3. 112.7 yards per game on the ground for them. And I feel like that if we can hold them to that same number, we probably win the football game handily. Just 4 rushing touchdowns. Ran for just 789 yards on the year and allowed 13-16. Passing has been a bit of an adventure for them. 136 of 250, just over around 53%, I guess. 9 interceptions. Now, they have picked off 8 passes, and they got to South Carolina a little bit, but if you watch that ball game, and I did earlier this week, the interceptions that South Carolina threw to Vanderbilt were awful. It wasn't just great defensive plays. I mean, you had some really bad overthrows. Ball placement was very, very erratic. And so it's not like they have created those turnovers. They were kind of gifted those turnovers. Offensively, averaging 310.9 yards per game, allowing just under 450. 11 offensive touchdowns while allowing 30. Not been especially strong in the return game either, averaging just 14 yards a return. Probably best to just call the fair catch there. So, kind of looking at that, those are things to kind of monitor. They have been a little bit leaky at times in kick return defense, but just over 5.36 yards per return. So punting, this is a factor as well. Right at 44 yards, for them. They have been decent, 8 of 13 in their field goal attempts. Now, a couple weeks ago, Vandy's kicker was over 3 in the ball game. Hit a couple of big kicks against South Carolina, against them. Third down conversions, 37 of 115. A lot of third downs for them, 9 of 14 on fourth down. They have fumbled the ball 10 times, lost it 6 times. They have forced 4 fumbles and recovered just 2 of those. Just 4 sacks for their defense. They've been sacked 13 times. So not a great pass rushing team, and you would think that probably plays well into what Mississippi State wants to do. Now, the best running back they have is Rocco Griffin, and he had a really, really hard-nosed, blue-collar type run at the goal line to give Vanderbilt some life late in that ball game against South Carolina. 82 carries on the year, 284 yards, averaging just over 40 yards per game. Now, Ramon Davis, a little more explosive. He's averaging right at 70 yards, but has been injured. He's only played in 3 games this year. Mike Wright is the quarterback, and he is not a guy that just kind of came off the shelf and started against South Carolina. They have played him some this year. He's appeared in 5 games this year, 36 rushes for 139 yards, averaging just under 28 per game. So, again, we're going to have to kind of account for him in the running game. Going to be a much different deal. Kenny Seals did not run much at all. Really more of a prolific type passer. That's really more of his game. Didn't really have the dual threat thing. So Ken Seals not officially out this weekend, but we don't expect to see him. Mike Wright, though, again played in 5 games. 113.4 quarterback rating. Is just 22 of 44 in passing. So basically every other attempt is an incompletion. He's thrown a couple of picks. Just 301 yards to his credit and a couple touchdowns. Averaging 60 yards per game passing. So I think we're going to see them really try to establish the run with him. I think that's pretty much a given at this point. Now, they did throw the ball a little bit last week. The guy that you really got to account for in the passing game is number 14, Will Shepherd. Now, there were a couple plays against South Carolina that was clearly kind of a predetermined read, and they hit him for a couple of big plays against South Carolina. I think it was kind of designed, okay, Will is your read here, so run your play action stuff, and then he will find a way to get open. So Shepherd at 14, 34 catches to lead the team, 453 yards, 3 touchdowns. All of those are team highs, 64.7 yards receiving per game. Chris Pierce, number 19, having a decent year himself, 31 catches, 338 yards, a touchdown, along of 31. But it's pretty much kind of spread throughout the roster. It's pretty well evenly distributed among their top 4 receivers, but Will Shepherd is clearly the guy that you got to pay special attention to. And so if you're Mississippi State, job one is to stop the run and put the game, again, into Mike Wright's lap and make him throw the football to beat you. You can't let him just sit back there. Do you find that you've got less time to do the things you really want to do? Maybe you don't have time to run to the store and put together a great gourmet meal for the family. Well, our friends at HelloFresh are here to help you. Fall is very, very busy. The kids are back in school. There's lots of activities, not to mention sometimes you just don't feel like going and dealing with the hustle and bustle of the supermarket. Allow our friends at HelloFresh to take care of you. HelloFresh's family-friendly menu is a big win for back-to-school season with easy, delicious recipes for drama-free dinners. We all want more of that. They offer 50 menu and market items to choose from every single week. From vegetarian meals and calorie-smart choices to extra special gourmet options, there's something for everybody in the family. Recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. All right, so here's the deal. I have tried all of these home delivery kits, and I'll be honest with you, HelloFresh is exactly what they mean. The name is not just some catchy marketing campaign. It is HelloFresh, delivered right to your door. Because I believe in its product, I've partnered with these folks, and I'll be honest with you, we're going to share a promo code for you to help you get involved, let's just say. Go to HelloFresh.com/Boneyard14. What's a Boneyard for? Boneyard is for you. The 14 is for free meals. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/Boneyard and the number 14. Boneyard 14. For up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. You can't do better than that. Again, HelloFresh.com/Boneyard14. And have the run pass option. You got to make him be a quarterback. All right, let's look here defensively. This is a team, too, that, watching them play, they are not especially athletic. Now, they're SEC players, but I really thought the linebackers struggled to play sideline to sideline. They're tackle-to-tackle type backers. They just don't have maybe the athleticism that we're accustomed to seeing in the linebacker position, which tells me that Dylan Johnson and Jaquavius Marks could have a pretty good day. Getting those guys outside, whether it be with the running game or the passing game, I think they're a difficult matchup for some Vandy linebackers that seem to be about a half tick slow. Now, Anthony Orji, their leading tackler, 7 games, 53 tackles total, and has the 1 sack and a quarterback hurry. He does have 7.5 tackles for loss, which leads the team. Ethan Barr, 51 tackles for him, a couple of interceptions, 3 pass breakups, and a couple quarterback hurries. And he's the guy, too, that had a decent game against South Carolina as well. Looking here, the leading defender in the secondary, Davion Davis, 4 pass breakups, and then also has a quarterback hurry. And again, this is a team that doesn't do a really good job of getting the quarterback on the ground. They will try to kind of get in his face a little bit as this thing kind of moves forward. I think we all understand that this is a team probably that will sit back and play a lot of drop 3 and make us move the ball methodically down the field in hopes of kind of keeping the game and the score manageable. I think if Mississippi State can get to 30 points, I think that you probably have won this game substantially. I think in order for Vanderbilt to win, they've got to keep this game in the low 20s. I think that's will be their goal and their effort. So I do expect them, again, to try to establish the run and then force us to drive the length of the field. They'll look to avoid the big passing play, which that's what most teams do against us. Alabama really the only one, I think, that it's really dictated terms to us when it's come to pass rush. They really showed some exotic things, and Clark Lee, being a Nashville guy, a former Vanderbilt player, he will probably look to mimic some of that as we get into the ball game. But this is a group, too, again, not as athletic as we have seen, but they do have some guys out there. You can't afford to get loose and sloppy with any of that stuff. I mean, you just can't. Jaylen Mahoney is another guy that's important to kind of keep an eye on, too. 29 tackles for him with an interception, a pass breakup. Also has, 1 sack. They're just not a ton of sacks with this team. Nobody has more than 1 on the entire roster. I told you, 4 sacks as a defense. That bodes well, I think, for Mississippi State in an offensive line that needs to go out and have a good showing after a 7-sack performance this past Saturday against Alabama. So that's kind of how the defense kind of shakes up. And it's just one of those things you look at, and you look at some of these numbers, they have really struggled to defend at times. Now, looking special teams here, I think that could be a real factor, to say the least, especially in a ball game like this. Harrison Smith is their guy. He's a guy out there making things happen for them, for sure. A guy that does a little bit of everything for them, I guess. He's a guy that can handle the kicking. He's a guy that can handle all 3 kicking disciplines if necessary. Looking at the field goal side of things, and I mentioned that he did miss some field goals here a couple weeks ago. That's, believe it or not, the guy doing the place kicking, and I'm shocked to see this name. I guess I missed it, but it's Joseph Bulovus. Remember him? A guy to Covington, Louisiana, Mississippi State was expected to get a commitment from, and then on its way, he stopped at Alabama, took a blue shirt deal. That's what he did. So it is what it is. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right, so Harrison Smith, of course, kind of handling the the punting aspect of things, but I understand that he's a guy that was highly recruited by many schools to kind of handle the all those kicking type disciplines. He's capable of doing that. But Joseph Bulovus, if he struggles again, you could see that. But handling the kickoffs for them, Pearson Cook. Now, 19 kickoffs, 0 touchbacks. 0. So when you begin to think about that, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Well, it's Tulu Griffin, right? Joseph Bulovus has had 5 kicks, 0 touchbacks. And so you have a guy here, you have a team that struggles to kick the football into the end zone, which is kind of, that's been a thing that's neutralized Tulu a little bit in the last few weeks. So now you've got a team that's got a couple of kickers that can't quite get it there. So that should open up the return game a little bit for us, and in turn shorten the field a little bit and maybe give our offense a chance to kind of get a head start with some of the stuff. Very, very interesting type stuff. There's always the game within the game. That's the one thing that jumps out to me at every bit of this is like, when we're having to drive 75 yards, sometimes things break down. Well, we don't have to do that. Maybe we can break one. Next thing you know, some good things are happening for us. Those are the things that excite me. And I know you could probably feel the same way. You look at this and say, you know what? Hey, Steve, we just need to get Tulu loose. We do. All right, kind of moving along here too. Some other things, just kind of miscellaneous type stuff. They're just not a team that you look at and say, okay, this is the strength. I think really what it boils down to is, Clark Lee is a guy, was not really a highly recruited player, a guy that always wanted to go to Vanderbilt, and I think it's always a great thing. I think when guys get a chance to play at their childhood favorite school, that's a wonderful thing, no matter which school it is, because all of us had the dreams of one day playing for Mississippi State University when we were kids out in the front yard. For me, I was John Bond. And so we're going to talk about John a little bit later in the show too. But, when I begin to think about Clark Lee, this is a guy that is committed to Nashville. He's committed to Vanderbilt. He looks to be a guy that would not leave them for some bigger job. I think he loves being home. And so he is going to kind of build this program, I think, in his own image. Kind of hard-nosed, under-recruited, guys that play with a lot of effort. I think that is pretty much a certainty. And so, again, they hire one of their own to kind of turn this thing around. And I do think, even though their record doesn't indicate it, I do think at times they have played well at times this year in games against comparable opponents where they have really struggled. It's when there is a really big talent differential. Now, we've talked about this series a little bit on the Monday show. We have played a total of 23 times, Mississippi State, 14 wins, Vanderbilt 7, and then the 2 ties. But we have really had some success, against them. And it's been a long time since Vanderbilt has celebrated a victory over Mississippi State. And that 2004 season under Sylvester Croom, right? You remember that one, right? That was, we were just kind of getting off NCAA investigation mode, and Croom was here, and we were kind of excited about the future and just thinking, let's just get all this mess behind us. And we win that game against Tulane, and then we put together just a string of losses. And in one of the more forgettable seasons in our school's history, we get shelled by Auburn, and then we lose to Maine. And I had to bring it up. We lose to Maine, and then we get beat at LSU 51-0. And if you remember, Nick Saban and the Tiger offense took a knee at the end of the first half. That's how bad it was. Then we go on the road to Nashville, and they beat us 31-13. That's the last win that they have had against Mississippi State in a long time. It goes all the way back to 1988. So their only win against us since 1988, and that was a 24-20 loss back then. And so we have dominated this series, and we have certainly handled them when we played them. We just hadn't played them enough. There's some other people in this conference you get to play them every year, so that's an SEC win, kind of like Vanderbilt playing Tennessee and Missouri every year in baseball. The Ole Miss people can kind of count that one, even though it hadn't always worked out as well as it should for them. State has gotten the better of them, and I fully expect State to do the same thing on Saturday. We just got to go play clean. We got to go play clean. We can't turn the football over. We can't be silly. Can't have these penalty-killing drives. Can't get called for a big holding call on 2nd and 9 and put us in a bad situation. But a lot of it's going to ride on the shoulder of Will Rogers. And I continue to hear that he's fine. He's going to play. He's not 100%. And so does that mean we run the football a little bit more? Maybe. Does that mean that we involve maybe Jameer Calvin on, some end-around type stuff? Do we try to get those guys the ball in space? Do we throw a little more bubble screens? Do we get Tulu more involved? I would say, yeah. And that's the thing, too, about this offense. You're taxing Will Rogers to throw a lot of passes, but a lot of them are not high-stress passes. You're just kind of managing the game and taking what the defense gives you. And I think he'll fully be capable of doing that. And I think that Mississippi State's also in a really good spot in many respects because of the fact that I think there is a big exhale collectively, not just with the team, but with our fan base. Okay, well, Alabama's now behind us, and there's not a sure loss on the schedule the rest of the way. Now, I'd love to go up to Nashville and beat these guys 51-0, and it's not anything personal. I guess it's a little personal because you remember those guys were on top of the baseball dugout and taunted our players and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is a different sport. We need to go win this thing. It's a very winnable game against a team that struggles. And so without our help, I don't think Vanderbilt can beat us. I think with our help, they can keep the game close. But, they're a team that has been very, very challenged offensively. And they're playing a backup quarterback. If Mike Wright was the best option, then Kenny Seals would not have been the starter. The thing, to be honest with you, I think I would rather have played Kenny Seals because of the fact that it becomes a very limited offense with him behind center. There's no threat of him to run. Mike Wright, if you watch the South Carolina game, there were times that South Carolina brought pressure against him, and he is able to evade it and then go make a play. Those are the things that I look at, and it kind of concerned me a little bit. Not that I expect us to lose the game, but I think he is a little slippery. And another one of those guys, too, you're going to have to account for. Does that mean that we spy him? Yeah, I don't know. But I do know that he is a guy that's capable of making plays with his feet when things break down. Now, looking at the box score from last week, I just want to kind of give you some numbers, too, just to kind of – because that was, a full start for him. He was able to do a lot of things. And again, Vanderbilt gets down in this ball game 14-3 in the first quarter, and you think, okay, South Carolina's going to cruise. They don't. South Carolina didn't score again until the final minute. Vanderbilt basically shut them out the rest of the ball game, until the game was essentially on the line. But looking at Mike Wright's numbers, 11 of 21, 206 passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The big touchdown, of course, was the long pass to Will Sheppard at 52 yards. Basically just ran the fade. It was kind of a pump and go, I guess, in many respects. He kind of a stutter step deal, and then he just basically runs by the guy. And the safety kind of been underneath on some play action stuff. So Will Sheppard, 3 grabs for 120 yards and one of them's the big 52-yarder. Now, Cam Johnson also had a long reception in that ball game for 44, and that's the thing when you begin to look at this offensive stuff. 96 yards of their 206 yards came on 2 plays. So what that tells me is we have to avoid the big play. Now, at times, that's been easier said than done for us. We gave up some big plays last week, and hearing Colin Duncan say, a lot of it's just we had our eyes in the wrong place, and we let guys get loose, and that's the thing about a team against Alabama. You make mistakes in the secondary, they're athletic enough to run by you. I don't know that Vanderbilt has that same ability. But, when I look at these numbers, I begin to realize that, they're a team that's going to make us be honest. We're not going to be able to just get downhill against them. On 3rd and long, we got to go out there and get in their face and tackle in space. I mentioned Rocco Griffin, that he really played well against South Carolina, and he did. 18 carries for 57 yards and then the 1 touchdown late. Mike Wright, 15 carries for a total of 41, did have some sacks against him that kind of negated some of his earlier rushing attempts. And then Patrick Smith, 5 carries for just the 9 yards. But Rocco Griffin's going to be the guy, and Will Shepherd is going to be the guy. But I think your job one is just to kind of put the job in Mike Wright's lap, make him be a quarterback rather than an athlete. And was sacked a couple times, and a couple of those are really big. Tried to deal a little bit too much at times. But this is a team, that you look at and you say, we always talk about the talent differential when we play teams. When we play teams like LSU, there is a talent differential. When we play Alabama, there is a talent differential. But we're playing Vanderbilt, and the talent differential favors Mississippi State. So we're the more talented team. We're going to be playing our starting quarterback, barring something totally unforeseen. There's no reason to think we shouldn't be able to go up there and handle business. Now, looking at some of these numbers, it's like when the line came out, I was like you guys too. I mean, it's one of those things you look at and you begin to say, okay, maybe Vegas likes this team a whole lot better than we do, and that's not to say that we don't love the Bulldogs, but I was a little surprised when the line opened as high as it did. Let me check it right now just because we can see where we are. It's not that I think Vegas knows more than us, but these guys know a lot. They absolutely know a lot about what to do. And so let me look at the lines here for Mississippi State versus Vanderbilt. And we'll just kind of see how things are breaking down here. So here is what they will put out here for you. And it's like you never know when you click on these sites what they're trying to get you to do or whatever. But Bulldogs listed as a 20.5 favorite. I think that's right, if I'm reading that correct. And I don't know, this site's a little screwy. Let me just double check another place to make sure I'm giving you right numbers here. But, State basically a 3-touchdown favorite. Now, you look at this thing and you say, you know what, this is what should happen. Mississippi State should be able to go up there. Yeah, it opened at 21.5. And probably has come down a little bit since then. But the bottom line is that this is a game Mississippi State should win. We just got to get out of our way. Can't go over there and shoot ourselves in the foot. We can't go over there and commit a bunch of penalties. We can't go over there and have dead quarters. We got to go over there and play. And I think, again, the athleticism favors Mississippi State. And I think that you're going to see Jaquavius Marks have a really big day. I just may call it a hunch, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. I think they're going to struggle to kind of keep him curtailed. And if they're going to drop back in 8 so much, and if you saw what A&M and NC State did, they had those linebackers, and LSU to a certain extent, they had the backers really bailing out on the snap, and then all we had to really do is get one block on the edge, and then Marks and Johnson would lose for 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8, 9 yards. And I think you're going to see a repeat of that. I think they're going to really struggle, number one, to get penetration, but number two, I think we can run them out of that zone as best we can. But I think their team probably is just going to kind of manage the game and try to avoid getting blown out. And, again, Clark Lee and them, it's the first year, so, there's not any pressure up there. They're trying to build a program and kind of rebuild a culture. And, wish him the best, but certainly not this week. But if I had to call it today, I think State wins the game and covers, barring something totally unforeseen. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by Portico. I've told you guys before what a fan I am of Portico. And it's not just because of the fact that it's in Starkville. But I live here. And I would want to live somewhere nice. And I do, but I'll be honest with you, if I was moving to Starkville now, I would move to Portico just because of the convenience of being so close to campus. It's also on the backside of campus, so it's quiet. I don't have a lot of people, riding by and that sort of stuff. It's in a neighborhood Very easy to find. You turn off 82 on the 12. You take that right onto Pat Station Road. Next thing you know, there you are. Portico. Whether it be your primary residence or perhaps, a ball game weekend retreat, an investment property, you need to look into Portico if you're thinking of buying property in Starkville. Now, here's the thing. If you're looking to move right now, you're not going to be able to move into Portico because every house in Phase 1 has already been purchased. So what we're doing now is they're selling lots in Phase 2, and 3 of those lots have already been purchased. And then people can, in turn, pick out the floor plan of their home. So you have some say in that. I think everybody deserves some new construction at some point in their life. So reach out to our friend Brooks Bryan. His phone number is 601-416-8075. Portico is a great place to live. Got that great walking trail out there, so you can have the barbecue and everything else. And maybe in the evening, just to go out there and recount your day, you and your sweetheart can go walk around that track and just get caught up. That's a nice thing to think about, right? It's like, it's been a busy day. I'm going to get home. I'm just going to walk around. Maybe hold hands. Or maybe I just want to get out there and look at my phone. But either way, you can get out there and get your steps in too, right there in your own neighborhood. You don't have to go look for a place. Really cool thing. Portico has up 2-bedroom, 2-bath homes, up to 4-bedroom, 4-bath homes. So they've got room for your family. Check it out today. Give Brooks a call. You'll be glad you did. Brooks also a former Diamond Dog, so he is invested in Starkville and Mississippi State. Wants to make Starkville a better place to live for all Bulldog fans. Many of you have said, one of these days, Steve, I'm going to move back up there. One of these days, I'm going to have a place in Starkville. Well, here it is. Here it is. Rather than have to go look and ask people, hey, do you know anybody that's got a place? You can build your own. Right there, Portico. Very, very easy to find. Make Portico your next move. All right, we spent a lot of time in our lives talking about the 1980 Mississippi State football team. And why do you remember that? Right? Because of the 6-3 win over Alabama. But you know what? It was a great year. We had a couple of really bad losses that we look back and kind of shake our heads back a little bit. But we had a very memorable year. We open up the year, and then we at Memphis, and we beat those guys 34-7. And I think next year when we play Memphis here, that it'll be something similar to that. Louisiana Tech, we beat those guys 31-11. That Bulldog defense playing exceptionally well. Game 3, we went to Vanderbilt. We beat those guys 24-14. We're going to talk a little bit about that game. At Florida the next week, we're 3-0 and unranked, which is stupid. And we win. We lose at Florida 21-15. One of the losses that we had that just didn't make a lot of sense. They were a good team, but we should have been able to find a way to make that thing happen. Well, we didn't. We lose that ball game. We bounce back the next week at Champaign, Illinois, and win 28-21. And then we lose to Southern Miss. We get absolutely destroyed in this ball game, 42-14. As great as our defense had been playing, everything went wrong in that ball game. Everything. We bounced back the next week and we traveled to Coral Gables and we beat number 18 Miami at their place 34-31. Put together a nice streak here. We get Auburn and Jackson, beat those guys 24-21 the next week. A date that we'll never forget. 6-3 over Alabama. People were expecting us to have a hangover. The next week we beat LSU 55-31. Biggest offensive showing of the year. We win the Egg Bowl 19-14. And people are thinking, you know what, maybe we got a shot at a Sugar Bowl. We didn't. We ended up going to the Sun Bowl out in El Paso, Texas to take on number 8, Nebraska. And what's amazing to me is that we had to beat Alabama to get ranked. It didn't make any. Now, granted, it was top 20 polls back then, but it didn't make a lot of sense. It's like we go through the schedule, like before we even beat Alabama, what are we, 6-2? It's not like we're a bad football team. We're unranked. So then we beat number 1 Alabama, and they rank us number 19. And then we win against LSU. We move up to 17. We beat Ole Miss, and we don't even move up in the polls. Don't tell me there's not some bias against Mississippi State when we're putting together that kind of season. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. None at all. It kind of drives me crazy. We were 9-2 with a win over the number 1 team in America, and we're 17th in the country. We get ready to play Nebraska. And, of course, we lose that ball game 31-17. But But it's beside the point, I guess. But let's talk a little bit about this Vanderbilt game. Now, Vanderbilt at the time, George McIntyre was the coach there. And, Vanderbilt had not had a lot of recent tradition. McIntyre got there in 79. It was part of a rebuild year. He said after the Mississippi State game that he thought that was the best game they had played to date from an effort standpoint. So that year in 80, the second year under McIntyre, they open the year at Maryland and lose 31-6. And then they play us, and we win the ball game 24-14, but it was a game that was still pretty tightly contested. We got out to a pretty good start, and the next thing you know, they score a touchdown to kind of make this thing a little more interesting. We're up 17-7, thinking we're fixing to kind of coast and put this thing away, and then they hit a big pass play to pull within 3, and then the Mississippi State offensive line just kind of took over. With John Bond, Michael Haddock, and those guys kind of wrecking shop down there, it was a difficult undertaking to slow down the Bulldogs. Michael Haddock goes for 144 yards and I believe 2 touchdowns in the game. One of the first guys I remember being able to consistently do a spin move. And there's some video out there floating around of this game. But Michael Haddock is one of those guys, too, that he was a superstar at Mississippi State, even on a team where we had John Bond, a guy that we have that's basically been, one of the, godfathers of our program. A guy that we look at and say, that guy was really good. Michael Haddock was a tremendous football player. And we always kind of felt like he could do it, from Tippah County, Mississippi, just up the road there outside of Walnut. Played at Walnut, and got a lot of connections. But, Michael Haddock was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in the very first round, the number 8 pick in the draft, in the 83 draft. So you kind of go back in hindsight here. In 80, he's a freshman, being your primary ball carrier in a run-based offense. He ended up hanging around in the National Football League for 8 seasons and was eventually inducted into the Mississippi State M Club Hall of Fame back in 2019. A guy that's still very active. You can go to these M Club functions, and Michael Haddock is there. A guy that loves Mississippi State. A guy that put together a really good career at Mississippi State and played on some bad teams in the National Football League. Really did. Michael Haddock is a guy, too, that, one of those guys, you think about our program, and you think about some of the legends in our program, and they're from places like Walnut and Wiggins and Columbia and little small towns like that. I mean, Macon. There are a lot of players out there that dreamed of one day going and playing at Mississippi State, and they get the opportunity to represent their home state and represent their community on the big stage, and that's exactly what Michael Haddock did. And again, went on and had a great career. And you begin to think about, some of the guys that were on that team, that 1980 team. We talk about it in such reverence, and we honored them, last week. But there were a lot of guys on that team that went on and played, in a National Football League for a long time. Billy Jackson's still the record holder for sacks, tackles for loss. It's phenomenal. Think about the quality of the team. Glenn Collins, Johnny Cooks, Rob Fessmeyer. I mean, these guys are legends. And, I hold this team in high regard because it's the first one I ever saw in person. And so we beat Vanderbilt, and they did not have a great year that year. After they got by us, we beat them 24-14. They lose to Bama, then lose to Tulane, lose to Georgia in blowout fashion, lose to Ole Miss, and that should never happen. So they open up the year 0-6. They find a way to beat Memphis. They lose to Kentucky, lose to Miami of Florida, a team that we beat, and beat UT Chattanooga, an FCS school, and then finish the year with a loss to Tennessee, 51-13. So it's a 2-win year, And so the bottom line is, and I just wanted to talk about that game just because I saw that video floating around there, is, we were 2 teams going in 2 different directions, but, we found a way to go out there and get a W. And that's what needs to happen this weekend. We just need to find a way to go out there and get a W. It's like if I told you guys, hey, we're going to win the game 20-10, you'd be like, okay, but I really thought we'd score more points. At the end of the day, we just got to get a W this weekend. That 1980 team was a lot better than Vanderbilt. And at the end of the year, the record showed that. But we still had a competitive ball game against them. Now, again, emotion only carries you so far. You got to execute. And one of the things that I think Mike Leach does a good job of is managing emotions. Just go out there and do your job. We've had some guys in the past that kind of coach with passion, and I think at times, Sam Pittman. The book, obviously, still out on Sam Pittman, but I think that he's a guy that kind of coaches with emotion. Ed Orgeron, a guy that coaches with emotion. Not as bad as it was when he was at Ole Miss, but at some point you got to execute. That's the thing you get down to. And it's one of the things I wanted to say too, and I meant to mention this on Monday. I've done some coaching in my own days, and the thing that I have learned is it doesn't matter how much want to you have. It doesn't matter how much you practice. It doesn't matter how good a game plan you have. Sometimes the other guys are just better. And my hope is that holds true for us this weekend because we are just simply better. That 1980 team was just simply better than Vanderbilt. And so they found a way to win. Even though it ended up being a tighter ball game than it probably should have been, the better team won. More times than not, the best team does win. You can scheme, you can plan, you can put in wrinkles, you can do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's about players making plays, and that's in every sport at every level. I remember when I played high school football, we had a big running back named Anthony Preston. And late in the ball game, I remember Chuck Lick saying this: it doesn't matter what play we call here, we just need to find a way to get the ball in the hands of Anthony Preston. And you know what? When we did that, we won. It was very rare that we lost a ball game when Anthony Preston had the ball in his hands late. And so when you look at this Mississippi State team, you begin to think, okay, we don't have a Michael Haddock, we don't have an Anthony Preston, we don't have a J.J. Johnson or even an Anthony Dixon. You look at it and say, okay, I want this guy to have the ball in his hands. And at this point, I think that guy is Will Rogers. I think Will Rogers is a guy that you've got to kind of count on to be the guy to step up and make a big play. I remember in the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game, Will Rogers basically willed that team to a win. Took them down, threw a game-winning touchdown. The kid's got some moxie. He's got some toughness about him. It's like everybody's been so concerned about the shoulder this week. He never left the game. Yeah, he got crushed under on a sack, and it's just a football play. Wasn't anything malicious about it. It's just kind of part of football. He didn't beg out of the game. He didn't quit. He powered through it. He was determined to go get your team in the end zone. It didn't work out. But you have to have a certain level of respect for that. This is a guy that is a leader. This is a guy that was kind of cultivated and raised to be a leader. And now that it's his time to lead, these are the type of ball games you got to go win. You know what? And then maybe next year, maybe you go beat somebody like LSU. There is a development process in all this. It's not just about us growing as a program and us getting accustomed to Mike Leach. It's Will Rogers kind of growing accustomed to playing college football, really having to play before he was ready. People forget last year, when we were going through fall camp and, we're all expecting Garrett Schrader to really get in there and compete. And all of a sudden, Mike Leach starts talking about Will Rogers. He goes, I thought Will really had a good day today. Will's doing this, Will's doing that. Then I start making some calls because we can't attend practice to people that I trust that don't have a microphone in front of them. They say, man, the Rogers kid is just better. He's just better suited for the system. Not the same athlete of Garrett Schrader, but he just fits what Mike Leach wants. And so, of course, Garrett Schrader ends up playing wide receiver for us some last year. I'm really happy for him, too. Hope he does a great job at Syracuse. They should have beat Clemson over the weekend. But when you kind of look at this deal with Will, he's playing before he's ready, in an offense that he's somewhat familiar with, but it's a different deal. And so we've had the discussion this week about Jack Abraham. I didn't know we were going to revisit that, but I do want to provide a little clarity on that. Jack Abraham is still with the team. He is still a member of the Mississippi State football team. He is not practicing. So I guess technically he's on the team. He's not with the team. Still going through some physical therapy, and I understand that he's going to appeal for a seventh year of eligibility and be back out here next year to compete. And you know what? Good for him. And we need him to. We need him to be able to compete. We need him to make the room better. You know what? He might win the job. Who knows? I don't expect that to be the case. But the more experience and leadership you have in the locker room, the better. And, for a guy like Jack Abraham that has had it kind of taken away from him through no fault of his own, those people tend to come back with a vengeance because they understand what they've lost and they understand how precious the opportunity is to play college football. And so I've had this taken away from me. Well, I've got one more shot at this. I'm going to make it count. And so, Jack Abraham, still a Mississippi State Bulldog. I know there was some confusion about that. earlier in the week. I think that's all been addressed now, but we'll kind of move forward. And then there's all this stuff, too, about, well, who's running third, who's running fourth, and all that kind of stuff. None of that matters. In the event that the Mississippi State Will Rogers quarterback couldn't play, Chance Levertich is the next guy up. And this is a guy that has played Division I football. He's been a starter on Division I level. You remember a couple of years ago, he was the starting quarterback for South Alabama when they beat Southern Miss. One of the last wins Steve Campbell had at South Alabama. And so, I hear Sawyer Robertson's this. I don't know where you're getting these reports from. I mean, honestly, it's like somebody makes a comment on a message board, and I guess it kind of validates the false narrative, so we accept it as fact. Guys, Sawyer Robertson is the future of this program at quarterback. Now, Daniel Greek, very capable player. He is. And he's a big guy that passes the looks test and is a coach's kid. Bertie, I just don't think at this point he has the same physical skill. And I think when Sawyer Robertson has a year in the weight room, you're going to be impressed with what you see. And it's like there's so many people, it's like we chase these recruits and then all of a sudden we get them, and it's like we forget the names, and then somebody goes, oh, well, maybe they're a bust. Guys, no. It just simply takes some time to let things develop. Will Rogers is your quarterback. Chance Levertich is your backup. And I think Will Rogers will start this weekend. I think Will's going to play well, and I think we'll do a good job moving the football against Vanderbilt. And so we'll come back on Friday. We'll preview the rest of the weekend. It's a slow weekend. It won't be wasn't nearly as fun as it has been the last 2 weekends. Slow weekend in the SEC. Remind you, if you hadn't done so, go to dogpilethebook.com. Pre-order your copies of Dogpile. Get as many as you want, and we'll do our best to fill those orders. And I will sign and personalize upon your request your copies. And don't have an actual release date yet. They continue to tell me it'll be November. I was hoping it'd be October. I don't control that. The supply chain affects everything. And I used to think, that's just an excuse, right? Until it happened to me. And so, I'm working hard 18 hours a day, 6 days a week for the better part of 2 months to get that book out and off to print. And got done in August, and now here we are nearly 2 months later after I finished writing the book, and we don't have the book. And so a lot of it's because of a paper shortage. Now, we got plenty of copies of Flim Flam, Alpha Dogs, and Stark Villains in stock. And so you can visit that same website, dogpilethebook.com, and you can order those books, and we'll send them to you now. We'll send them to you when Dogpile arrives. If you're looking for Blooms of Oleander, and many of you are, I get a lot of messages from people that are saying, hey, I didn't see Blooms of Oleander on the Dogpile website. Well, you're not going to, but you can find it at Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksandMegan.com, or order it through your local bookstore, which I highly recommend. I think you should have a favorite bookstore that is probably an independent that can take care of you. I believe in supporting local business and small business, and I hope that you do as well. Well, that's going to do it for today. We'll be back on Friday. Looking forward to that. And tonight we'll have coaches. Not sure exactly who we get. We're going to be able to talk to some Bulldog coaches kind of about their preparations for Vanderbilt, and I'll share some of that with you on Friday. And if you're not a member of genespage.com, you should be. And at the very least, go like us on Facebook. We don't share any VIP content over there. So if you're looking for news about the Bulldogs and maybe you're not quite ready to take the leap and be a subscriber, just go like our Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter. We're fun. We're a lot of fun because we cover Mississippi State. And it is a responsibility and an honor that I hold dear to my heart, and I will never, ever, ever take it for granted. And so give us a try over at genespage.com. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.